Hi, it's Lisa. Welcome back to Passionfruit Art's Kitchen. Today we are making bone broth. You can make bone broth with beef bones, chicken bones, or any kind of bones really. My favorite is chicken bone broth because I always have chicken bones around. I'm always roasting a chicken or buying a roast chicken and I've got those extra bones. So it makes a really nice base for soups and stews and sauces, and it's really easy. My method is all about throwing things together and using what I have. So I just did a video about making veggie broth, which is pretty basic. Taking all my scraps of vegetables that I have chopped throughout the week and put them in a bag or a container and store them in the refrigerator. You can even store it in the freezer if you aren't gonna get to making the broth for a while. And go ahead and put all of your scraps, onion skins and garlic skins, parsley and carrots and celery, right into a very large stock pot if you have one. And to make the chicken broth, we'll just use this carcass that I have. I bought a roast chicken and it was organic, and I've got a lot of yummy little fat bits and meat left. And we're just gonna put this right in the stock pot whole. We don't even need to chop it up. And we could cover this with water right now, and that would just make a good chicken broth or chicken stock. To make it a bone broth, we use apple cider vinegar. And what the vinegar does is it actually draws out the calcium and other vitamins and minerals from the bones. So this is what makes it a bone broth. So just a splash, I don't know, tablespoon maybe, and cover it all the way and go ahead and bring it to a boil and then turn it down. You can really easily do this in a crock pot or an Instapot, just bringing it up to a high temperature and then letting it simmer at the lowest temperature possible for 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. It's up to you. When I put it in the crock pot, I just leave it on for a couple days and I start skimming off the broth as I want to use it, and then I'll add more water. I don't like to go longer than 36 hours because it can get a little cloudy.
After the broth has cooked for at least 4 hours and no more than 48 hours, cool it to handle and carefully pour it through a fine mesh strainer or sieve. Discard the bones and scraps at this point, as you have extracted all of the nutrients. Once the broth is strained, it is ready to use as a base for soup, stew, or sauce. This broth is also recommended as a sipping broth. Try it warm with a little sea salt and a splash of fresh lemon juice. Adding bone broth to grains in place of water boosts the nutrition, so try replacing your cooking water with broth next time you put on a pot of rice to cook. To save the bone broth for later use, store it in an airtight container, like a canning jar, for up to 10 days in the fridge, making sure to label and date the jar. If you don't use it up fresh, or know you want to put it straight into the freezer, you can still use a glass canning jar. Just don't fill it past the freezer line, so it does have room to expand. You can also freeze the broth in a strong freezer storage bag. I find that labeling the bag before you pour the broth in is easier because the bag is dry and flat. Placing the bag in a bowl helps to support it while you pour the broth in. Seal it up tightly and freeze for up to 6 months. I like to place the bag on a cookie sheet and freeze it overnight to make a flat shape for easier storage. Then remove the cookie sheet the next day, and your frozen broth will be easy to stack. This nutritious broth makes a great base for soups, so check out my channel for how to make a veggie broth from scraps and delicious soup recipes to nourish your body and feed your soul.
And it's ready to go. You can add a little salt and pepper at the end, and you just strain this out, and that's it. It's a classic chicken bone broth. So if you have any questions, just feel free to put it in the comments below. One thing I do want to say about the chicken bone broth is that it's really a brown stock, and it's nice and caramel flavor when the chicken is roasted, when the bones are roasted. If you want the kind of hearty, rich chicken bone broth that you see in the stores, it's made with roasted bones.